When did you realize your friends were actually fake friends? Finding out they have an inner circle group chat, but I'm the only one not in it. When my phone got stolen and I lost their phone numbers. Mine stayed the same, but we just never talked again. I was invited to the bachelorette party for one of the friends in this group. While at the party, I figured out that I was the only person not invited to the wedding. I had been invited to the party because they needed another person to chip in for expenses. One friend stopped replying to my texts right after we graduated from college. Like the same week we graduated. So, I was pretty much just a study buddy that they kept close to keep me helping them. I wouldn't say I have fake friends, but I am definitely the periphery friend. The majority of the time, if there isn't enough tickets or space in the car for everyone to go do something, I'm the one who gets cut out. It doesn't bother me much, but I wish they would be more mindful when talking to me about things we have done. Remember when we went to see XXX? Wasn't that fun? Well, no, because I wasn't invited. In those situations, it usually gets awkward, or they say, "Hey, we would have invited you if we had the tickets, space, etc." After my divorce, we were couples friends, not individually. This was quite a few years ago. My ex and I were really friendly with another couple. Did a ton of stuff together. Then they moved not far, and fairly shortly after my ex and I separated. They hung out with me for a few months but then stopped calling. A few years later, I ran into both of them at a race, an ultramarathon, and they both pretended like they didn't know me. That was actually a really painful moment. The group made plans to meet and hang out. I was getting ready in the salon. A couple of friends had to back out for some reason. The other friend then made excuses of his own, and I could tell. I tried cajoling him and offer ways for him to go, but he basically decided to cancel the entire group meetup. It was my birthday, when they stopped contacting me when I stopped drinking. When I realized I was the one always calling. Then I stopped and friends disappeared. Once high school ended, I heard about all the rumors they made up about me. Whenever we were supposed to hang out, something came up, and that something was hanging out with other mutual friends. I stopped smoking weed and they stopped coming round. I'm sorry, so many of you seem to have had similar experiences. You'll make new friends if you haven't already. To the people saying there's nothing wrong with this, then I'd like to respectfully disagree. These were people I considered close friends. It wasn't just some guys and gals I shared a hobby with. Please don't be so quick to judge when you have very little context. When I went through a divorce and was down to $700, most difficult period, and weeded out all those who friend me for my generosity because I was well settled. Started over and have like 2 true good friends. When I was in school, all my friends and I did different A-levels. Despite us all having different lessons to each other, they would wait for each other to go to lunch together. But they would always forget me. Like I'd come out and they wouldn't be there. So I'd have lunch by myself. And then they'd come back and tell me they thought I was with them. I was the only one they didn't wait for. I've only seen one of them since we left school. She had forgotten my name. So that sucked. My friends from high school all unfollowed me when I graduated college. I'm the only one who no longer lives in our hometown. This friend, I'll call her Mary, had kids the same age as mine. We got together for play dates pretty often, and our kids would sleep over at each other's houses for weekends. I liked Mary. We would often visit and talk while our kids were playing. One weekend, her kids had stayed at my house. The older one called her mom to see when she was coming to pick her up. I was in the room, and the kid put the phone on speaker for some reason. Mary told the kid what time she would be there and added, "You had better be waiting outside. If I have to go in and spend the next hour talking to River Tam, I'm gonna be really pissed." We didn't spend much time together after that. Did I overreact? Was Mary just having a bad day and not want to talk? And, my personal favorite, River Tam, maybe you're just insufferable? Here's what happened after I overheard my friend say that to her child. I simply stopped initiating contact and wasn't as available to do stuff for her. When we dropped off or picked up the kids, I smiled and waved. I let the kids make the plans for play dates. I no longer had time to help her with her garden or watch her kids while she went out with another friend. They were into long-distance running, which is not my cup of tea. She never contacted me unless she wanted something. This had always been true, but I had not realized it. The friendship eventually fizzled out on its own. So, I guess it had never been much of a friendship to begin with. I just didn't realize it until she opened my eyes. I was at a party, really depressed after a bad breakup, and got drunk. My abusive ex showed up, caught me somewhere alone, and hit me. I begged several friends for help since I was too drunk to drive home alone, and they ignored me. My ex-best friend was there, completely sober, and refused to drive home with me because she didn't believe he would do that. There's no Uber or anything in my country, BTW. The whole thing escalated. One guy I didn't know ended up finding me alone in a field crying and throwing up, brought me back to the house, built a bed out of blankets for me, and sat guard all night to make sure my ex wouldn't do anything again. When I traded in my truck for a smaller, more eco-friendly vehicle, communication plummeted now that I can't haul furniture around, assist with moving as much, dispose of garbage, etc. I flew out to support a friend going through a messy divorce. While I was there, she left me in the apartment to meet up with her boyfriend that I didn't know about. He turned out to have just been released from prison for manslaughter. Once she told me that, I told her that I didn't want to spend time with him, especially considering the circumstances of my visit. The next night, I woke up in the middle of the night to find him in the living room. She said that she thought it wouldn't matter since I was asleep. The next day, she invited her soon-to-be ex-husband over without telling me and then asked me to meditate their conversation once he got there. That conversation turned ugly fast, and she ended up storming out. He broke down and asked if I thought it was salvageable, and I told him that she had already moved on. Maybe not the best idea on my part, but at that point, she had shown me how vile of a person she is. When I was babysitting her kids, things were going great. We would hang out all the time, have movie nights and just talk and chill. But the second she no longer needed a babysitter was the second I got kicked to the curb. No explanation. Not even a text back. Some people will act like your best friend until they no longer need you. They're lost though. Onerous, heavy, adjoining, absurd, tender, ripe, crowd, jobless, hunt, impossible. For me it was when I got in some deep trouble and they all just cast me aside without even giving it a second thought. I realized this when I invited all of them to go to the movies with me and they all said they couldn't go. I then found out through one of them that they went to see that movie the same day, and when I asked then why they didn't tell me they were going, they said, "We just wanted to go together." Shit broke my heart. A lot of so-called friends aren't real friends. They're more like acquaintances. People you know and are civil with. There's at least one that is fake though. He or she has you in their life solely to benefit from. It can be financially, it can be emotionally. It can just be because he or she thrives on your failures. Some people keep you around as something to gawk at. Harsh but true. When I realized literally just being in the same room as that person made me miserable. It's because the person was extremely self-conscious, to the point that they would overcompensate by putting others down every little chance they had to make themselves feel above. I kept wondering why they would keep throwing me under the bus for no reason, like we had been friends for years. Why would they treat me like this? It took me years to figure out exactly how bad of a friend they were, no matter how hard they pretend not to be. It took me an entire year of ghosting to stop being friends with that person, because they loved putting me down so much they wouldn't stop calling me, texting me, trying to contact me for a year with no responses because they could not understand how someone could possibly want to stop hanging out with them because they are so perfect. When I broke up with my long-term boyfriend, the guy I thought had been my best friend of 3 years gave me 2 weeks before saying, "Is it my turn yet?" Fucking garbage. Went to pick up my Xbox 360 a friend was borrowing, and our whole group of friends were there. They had spent the entire day playing games with snacks and pizza, and I had not been invited. And now I was in the situation of being the douche who takes the ball home and ruins the fun for everyone. I took my Xbox and never spoke to anyone in that group again. When I got sober, 7 months today, when they abandoned me when I was going through a rough time, when I spent years listening and supporting them, when I have my first true moment where I am not coping and need support, they are nowhere to be seen and bitching behind my back. This is when I realized my high school friends never had grown up past high school. Luckily, I had other friends, just not a large girl group like that. But I can actually say that every friend I know they have my back and won't judge me if I am not always happy. And the same for me. I have always had very high expectations of myself as a friend, and I feel that everyone I call a friend is someone that brings something special to my life. That is worth more than having a huge group of bitchy girlfriends who turn on each other when they are out of the room. Took me a long time to realize it though. One friend at university tried to steal my animation coursework, claim it as his own and get me kicked out for stealing his work. However, I had helped setting things up by one of my tutors/professors for me to film the coursework, so he instead got expelled and blacklisted from the university and any other university in the UK doing the same subject. The people running all the animation degrees in every university in the UK back then knew each other and talked to each other regularly as it a small community. I think there were less than half a dozen universities with animation degrees back then. This was 20-ish years ago now. When my longtime friend called me and said, "Hey, can you hang out? No one else can." Vex and stuff. For me, it was like it was for Stratabits. Only I didn't go bankrupt. I intervened 3 guys assaulting 1 guy. Long story short, guy I stopped to help leaves and the 3 guys assault me. A couple of collapsed lungs, many broken bones, a pneumohemothorax, brain damage, frothing pink from the mouth because my lungs were full of blood, and a couple of heart stops later mixed with cognitive issues. I lost my house, job, savings, 401k, every single thing I owned but a car. I wasn't good enough for my sister, and all but 5 of my closest friends. My wife stayed with me through it all, and without her I would never made it. My remaining friends gave me hundreds of dollars, a registered and insured van, a new job, restored faith in humanity, and the support I needed to pick myself back up. All because of money. It taught me a very valuable lesson about people. You learn who is behind the curtain when you lose your worth to them. For instance, you are going through a dark period in your life, then they just leave like you are a worthless bag of dust. When I went bankrupt, I learned the hard way who my friends were, and who were no friends at all. This is a good post because it has the potential to help a lot of people. In college, I remember hanging out with a group of people like the ones on this thread. They were also my roommates for 3 years. Every year, we'd throw a fun party for everyone's birthday but mine. They didn't even know when mine was. After I graduated and looked back on it, I realized they were never my friends. I don't even hear from them anymore. I spent 4 years socializing with the wrong people, and if I had just hung out with the people that I had led to believe were nerds or annoying, or who I had more things in common with, I would likely have had a much more fun time in undergrad. Good thing I have much better friends than just the ones I made back then. When they walked past me crying and pretended I didn't exist. When I realized that Discord bot is a bot. After graduating high school, then once again after graduating college. I think graduation is the ultimate test of true friends versus the people who were drinking buddies or people you hung out with because you all disliked the same cliques. For anyone who's quite young reading this, or just leaving college, don't confuse fake friends for people becoming adults. It's extremely normal for adults to lose touch with older, close friends due to life circumstances, children, distance, work, etc. That doesn't mean they're fake friends, it just means they have higher priorities than hanging out/chatting than they used to. You'll often find those fake friends are happy to see you when either they or you make it easy/convenient. That may be frustrating, but it's a normal part of growing up and likely something you'll do too. P.S. The post-college bit is the most jarring because everyone becomes an adult at a different pace. So people drop off, and if you're not ready yet, it can seem like people are dropping you as a friend. Just make it easy for them and you'll very likely pick things up right where they left off. When I returned to work after being off for 3 months due to an injury and I practically begged them to go grab a beer and do pub trivia, but all 3 of them passed because they had plans. Well, it turns out their plans were to go grab a beer and do pub trivia without me. Found out through social media. Deleted it shortly afterwards. I've been a lot less depressed about things since I've deleted social media and stopped looking at them as friends and just as work acquaintances. It took that for me to realize that the friendships were really one-sided and I'm better off not pursuing anything other than being cordial at work. My friends made a Facebook account for a fake girl who was transferring to our school and full-on catfished me, only revealing it was a scam when I arrived at a movie theater to meet her. Was I dumb? Yes. Were they shitty? Undoubtedly. My best friend of 10 years called on my wedding day to say she couldn't make it because she was just so sad about her recent divorce. Turns out, she just had a date. Our whole friendship was fake, it just took me to that point to realize it. On this note, if anybody wants a new friend, hit me up. My so-called friends invited me to a party, and then at the last moment, they texted the group that no one's coming and the party is cancelled. Well, they had the party that day. Everyone went there. They just had decided they didn't want me there because I was boring and not a fun person. So they told me that there was no party happening. It hurt a lot, it was a terrible day for me. Fake friends is a phenomenon that evaporates in the adult world and is replaced by toxic relationships. Being jammed together with people in the same school or church or dorm means that you're connected together. You can be taken advantage of, ignored at a whim, or abused, and have to constantly interact with the people who would do it simply by being in the same space day after day. In the adult world, it's easier to cut people out of your life or lay the ground rules for your relationships. Toxic relationships form out of codependency or some other factor that makes you feel trapped. But people that you make friends with that drift apart with time is just the natural ebb and flow of life. I just kind of realized I was the background friend. People always called me when they had a problem and needed my help with it. My job is the type of job that people seem to think that I love freelance for without pay. So I would constantly get, "Hey, how are yous?" followed up with. So I'm having this issue with job-relevant thing. I stopped answering these questions outside of my defined work hours and directed people to my work email with any questions. Apparently that makes me an asshole and I kind of fell off people's radar. I'm not sure how I feel. I'm married, so I mostly just hang out with my husband in terms of people. I also have 2 dogs and 2 horses and I love hanging out with them too. I like to just grab a book and a picnic lunch and ride out with them, find a cool place and just kind of exist. I'm reading a book, the dogs are playing and the horses are grazing. Life is honestly not that bad. When they roll their eyes behind your back. I swear, some people don't have peripheral vision. When they thought it was lame that I decided to get sober. When I was fired, because one in the circle was jealous of my success and started badmouthing me to everyone behind my back. Lost the job and the circle of friends even though I could, and did prove that it was all lies. They still sided with the asshole. Also, more than one I helped in rough times by finding jobs for them, getting them into the interviews. When I lost mine, they all ghosted me. Needless to say, they all just proved that a friend is just an asshole who hasn't had time to backstab you yet. When I left their church, when one of them tried to kiss me and I dodged, so later he held my head in place and planted one right on my lips, then got me kicked out of the group by telling everyone I tried to force myself on him. When I ran out of cocaine, was once told, I'm trying to hang out with my real friends. 'Twas enough. I found a huge skeleton in my family closet and it messed me up for months. I explained to my friends I was going through a lot and ITLL take time to talk about it. When it really did take some time, my friends were angry that I didn't trust them enough to go through it together. I did tell them after a couple months and I went to therapy for it, but they told me they didn't care if I got better. One friend's exact quote was, "Your existence bothers me." We were all roommates and I ended up moving out in secret because they were purposefully causing anxiety attacks, banging on my door at night, not letting me into the kitchen to eat, etc. Damn bro, this thread has taught me that people are really shitty. When we fucked and he basically wanted nothing to do with me afterwards. 2 years of what I thought was a friend thrown away for bad dick and 20 seconds of disappointment. When I told her I was suicidal and having panic attacks. Never heard from her again. When I got divorced. Apparently all of my friends were really my ex-husband friends. I haven't spoken to any of them in 6+ years. In my 4th year of high school, I found out a large portion of my friends had been meeting every single week for the past 4 years to watch Community together. In 4 years of high school, they never once brought it up or invited me. Similarly, at the end of my 4-year uni program, I saw on Snapchat that 99% of my program was throwing a huge house party and no one invited me. When school ended, the last one friend stopped texting me 2 months later. Never heard from them again. When I realized that what he really wanted was to use me to break into my circle of friends and claim them for himself. After reading these comments, I feel better about being someone who never got too close and doesn't have many friends. Jesus, what a bunch of horrible stories. The day I told all my friends and even family I was going to be a father, a lot fell off the tree. The day I had my daughter was the day everyone stopped responding and started ignoring all my texts and calls. Got kicked out some group chats, people started unadding me off social media and some off Facebook. Now I have a handful of childhood friends and some family members that still see me and my daughter as family. It is what it is, I ain't trippin'. When they told me I was being too emotional a month after my father passed away, I was wondering why the house was so quiet in the morning. Didn't hear anyone move about in their rooms or come through the front door. Lunchtime passed and I realized that they all had gone. They come back in the evening after spending a day at the beach together. I died a little inside, but I didn't get sunburn, so I had that going for me. I could not say anything to them without them turning it into a fight over one thing or another. Culminated with them attempting to cancel me before they finally disappeared from my life. When one of them dated my sister and stopped talking to me. Around the same time that I realized that I wasn't as good a friend as I could have been. It was when I was 29. I spent most of my 20s being really cavalier about my work and career, having no discipline whatsoever, and attracted a group of friends who were similar, and in some ways a lot more extreme than I was. What happened over the course of a few years was that we started playing to a certain work hard, play hard, but skip the work hard part archetype. When I was 29, I was beginning to tire of it, and my body could keep up with the irregular lifestyle. When I started talking about this to my friends, I realized that they were more interested in keeping me in that self-destructive loop, instead of actually hearing me out. At the same time, I realized that my one-dimensional portrayal of myself to them in prior years had been less than honest, so I couldn't really blame them. In their eyes, I was not being myself. So yeah, perhaps they were fake friends in that they didn't want me to improve my circumstances, but I was equally fake in that I misrepresented myself a little bit. We drifted apart after that. I kind of always knew. I was two things. A poor kid in a private school and a really aggressive girl. I was only friends with other girls, and they were friends with me because they didn't want me to beat them up. I wouldn't even if they weren't. But they couldn't know that. And to be a part of conversation, I had to actively pretend to own stuff I didn't. Like cable TV and such. I have plenty of stories of fake friends. But it was partly my fault too. Currently, I have a small friend group and I strongly believe they're not fake. When I didn't have something they all desired, something they could use me for, my real friends came around regardless of what I had. When I trusted them with a secret that was mega personal and they told others even though I begged them, trusted them to not tell, they did, and ruined my career and life basically after 18 years of being besties. Drinking buddy who stopped responding when I had a kid. When they let the people who bullied me stay in the friend group. When they made off with large amounts of my money and involved me in complex legal disputes which I could have gone to prison for. Fake might not be the right word. It was when I found out they had doxed me. Well, and learning that they had been joking about murdering someone I was close to because they worked in a job related to law enforcement. This kid must have had serious mental issue. I had a friend in college who displayed some pretty troubling tendencies. Quick to anger, very insecure/paranoid about friendships and relationships in general. She became one of my roommates after she failed to get into a sorority she rushed that most of her real friends were in. After a pretty tumultuous few months of her constant bitchy and angry behavior, I realized her toxicity. Anyway, upon graduating she reunited with her actual friends and I never heard from her again. Never felt so relieved honestly, but it still hurt a bit that I could be so disposable to someone. I read this as, when did you realize your friends were actually family? I wasn't prepared for the lack of uplifting stories. I had a pickup. It was amazing how many friends didn't want to hang out with me after I got rid of it. Got a call about 6 months after I had traded the pickup off on a car. My friend was like, hey, long time no talk. So we talked for a few minutes. He goes, what are you doing tomorrow? I said, I'm going to wash my new car. I had heard he was moving, and of course he wasn't aware that no longer had the pickup. He ended the conversation not too long after that. Never heard from that friend again. My wife needed to go to the airport. I didn't have a car. Uber is not cheap, so I asked my friend if they could drop us. Airport was on their way to the club they went on weekends. They agreed reluctantly but didn't call or show up when it was time to leave. I didn't call them as well as I got the feeling that they didn't want to help us. I was on my way to the bus stop to catch a bus when we bumped into them. Now having no way out, they said they forgot and offered to drop. In the car, they taunted us about buying a car. We didn't speak again after this incident. Seeing on social media where my friends are attending weddings of our mutual friends, accidentally overdosing on a drug and ending up in the hospital, I reached out and messaged those friends that said, message me if you need anything. And when I asked them to do something like feed my cat, check the mail, message my family who don't use internet, or just talk to me, the response was, let me know if you need anything. It was as though saying that somehow ignored what I was telling them I need. I learned people say this when they don't know what to say or don't want to actually do something. Like, here I am, in a hospital bed, asking you for that help you said I could ask for. I know that I've helped you, but now that I just need this rudimentary help while I'm being treated at the hospital, no one is there, not even family. I've gone out and visited friends, hosted events for them, helped them in many ways, and it can be for years. And yet if I ask to be visited or for help, there's nothing. Sometimes they won't even let me know they can't show up for things like my birthday until hours into the party starting time. Some people just want to piggy bank you, dropping figurative social coins into you so that you show up for them, but they may never show up for you. I've spent years talking to someone wondering what it would take for them to ever fucking visit me, to have them literally show up once in over 5 years of a friendship. I feel like an idiot for having invested so much of myself, time, money, and genuine love to realize they do not want to invest even a fraction in reciprocation. We're friends for life now, some have said to me, and we've shared deep things. But it's always in public chat groups and we never converse in private. I've learned some people know how to be emphatic and seem really caring, but often it seems all they really care about is a performative friendship. The sing and dance of a friendship, but when you genuinely want to talk and open up about a conflict, to really ask for help to work through something, it's not what they're there for. They're there for the superficial and entertaining, the positive only, and the negative, whatever it may be, is not what they are there for. I don't know anymore what a real friendship is. I'm left really wondering if I'm the problem. The proverb, if everyone is the problem, then it's you, rings in my head. I must be the problem, because every relationship has similar issues. Lack of genuine connection. If I start to open up and share genuine feelings, it's a burden. And most of the time I'm just asking to be heard, nothing more, and I really only do this when it feels like it could be accepted. I'm not opening up relationships like this. You have to wait till rapport feels like it's acceptable to be vulnerable and authentic. I used to be a mechanic, and it's staggering how many people were friends because they needed me to fix shit for them. When I fell asleep, camping, and heard endless shit talking about me. The guy was a jerk and bully to me when I was awake, often too. I'm surprised I put up with it for so long. It's hard when it's mixed it with genuine brotherhood and friendship. I've told this story before, so I'll keep it really short. I called several friends to see if they wanted to hang out. Everyone said they were busy, family stuff, etc., except one guy who said, tonight? But Lawrence, one of the friends in my circle, party is tonight. Did you forget? I wasn't invited. And they posted pictures of it the next day. Thanks, gang. One of them catfished me for about a month. Almost all of them were in of it. Only one eventually worked up the balls to tell me, and several actively lied when I brought my suspicions to them. They also wanted to slip MDMA in my drink to see if it'd make me less angry about it. Fucking. Look up the 2 beers and a puppy rule of thumb. Is this person someone I'd have to beers with, but not trust my puppy? They're great to hang around and shoot the shit with, but probably a bit flaky on the more practical things. Would you trust your puppy to them, but not want to have 2 beers with them? Solid person to fall on for practical assistance. Even if they're a bit of a dick. You'd want both with them? Great friend. Neither? Really rethink this relationship. She encouraged me to apply for a job, got angry at me for getting the job, and then ghosted me. I've seen a lot of posts regarding money. I'd suggest not loaning friends money. Give it to them or don't. MHO, because I'm not playing bank. How much does it bother you when you loan someone $20, then next week you see them post a photo with Starbucks? You got $8 for that coffee. Where's the $20 you owe me? Put myself into therapy and stopped using social medias like Instagram. I went 2 months without having anyone check up on me. It's been almost 6 and still nothing. I moved on, started looking after myself and caring about me. When I invited everyone in the group chat out for my birthday drinks, M33, one person was on time, The rest of my friends decided to go fishing and arrived 4 hours later. When my girlfriend was rounding up the troops to carry on drinking at bar that closed later, I said WR would get a table and for them to catch us up. They just looked at me sort of vacantly because they hadn't finished their drinks. Because they turned up late, they bailed out without even saying goodbye. Great birthday. I realized when the only time I'd hear from them is when they needed something from me. I had what I thought was a very good group of friends throughout high school and college. After college, the only time I'd hear from them was when something was broken or they needed help. They got a new TV and needed it set up, or their computer was acting up and wanted me to look at it, or they were drywalling their basement and needed a set of hands. Not once over the course of about a year was there a single call for, "Hey, you want to hang out tonight?" or, "Hey, let's go out for dinner." Quickly moved them into the acquaintance category. I'd say I probably have two true friends. The kind who I'd bail out of jail with no questions asked, or they'd help me hide a body if it ever came to that.